I like the idea of the riot for episode 4. I like conceptually, I like how the fighting happened when the lights were going on and off. So it adds to the yin yang, the good and the evil fight, you know. So there's some sort of an illusion that's reinforced by the light. So I like that concept. But I did not feel the rush. I didn't feel the excitement. I did not feel invested in the fight. I wasn't cheering for anybody, and I felt like it was because of two things. One, everything that I thought was going to happen happened, so it was very predictable for me. Second is that there were a lot of faceless characters in there, characters that I didn't really know and I didn't care much about, and so I didn't feel so invested because I didn't know them, and I wasn't really cheering for anybody. So I think that's why it's really very important for the writers and the directors to make sure that there's that the audience get connected with the characters. But I unfortunately didn't feel that here. Okay, so after the game, when everyone walked back in, this is how brilliant these actors are. For Ali, when they walked in, you can see the relief in his eyes. He was just happy that everyone survived and moved on to the next round. But when Sang-woo saw them, there were two emotions that you can very, very clearly see. There was guilt and there was disappointment. He was guilty because he tried to tank them. He tried to get them out of the way. He tricked them, but it didn't work. And then there was disappointment because they're still here. This is a mix of direction and brilliant acting. Then the riot happened. I did not feel the rush. I didn't feel invested. I wasn't cheering for anybody. And I feel there's two reasons for that. One, because it was predictable for me. Everything that I felt or thought was going to happen happened. And there were so many faceless characters in there that I wasn't really cheering for anybody. So when it happened, I said no main characters was going to die. Everyone was going to survive. I don't know why, but I just knew that everyone was going to survive, and I was right. No, none of the major characters actually died. And then there were two. Then when it was, maybe the lighting contributed to it because there were some parts where it was dark, so I couldn't really see what was happening. And so that added to my detachment because I couldn't really see what was happening. But then there was this part where Sebyok, that part I love. It was also flashing in and out. The lights were going in and out. But I still love that part because I could see enough of her expression. I think this is both brilliant acting, both and directing, because there was a moment there when she started withdrawing, when Doksu was overpowering her. She was struggling and then Doksu was overpowering her. I think he was choking her, and there was that moment when I felt like I saw that she was withdrawing, that she was starting to lose consciousness and pulling away, and that was, I think, the only moment in that fight scene where I was like, don't die. Don't die. And then somebody came and interrupted the fight. That I like. But that part also made me realize it wasn't the in and out of the lights that was bothering me. It was something else. It really was the detachment towards the characters. There were too many faceless characters. I don't know them, so I don't feel the connection towards them. And I know some people are gonna say, well, you can't expect to establish a connection to all of these characters. I mean, you can only have so many airtime for the characters. You can't give each one a story. But the thing is that you can give each one a story. You don't have to give one a lot of airtime to be able to tell the story. I remember watching this, I think it was a movie. It could have been Beverly Hills Cop, maybe. But there was this one character there, one cop who was just loud. He was just loud. He would, whenever he would talk, he would yell. So, and he was just, he was, yeah, he was just always yelling. His voice was so loud, and it was irritating. And then, and so it took like one scene, or maybe one and a half or two scenes, to establish just how irritating he is as a character, how noisy he is as a character. It was like always like 1 second or 2 seconds to establish that. And then in the third scene he was in, or probably fourth, he finally explained why he was a loud person. And he said that he grew up in Brooklyn. He said, I grew up in Brooklyn, and there was always shooting happening. Someone was always shooting somebody. That, and so it became second nature for them to drop on the floor, right? Because there was always, everyone was always somebody was always in a fight shooting somebody. And so when they're shooting, you drop to the floor. So it would always drop to the floor, and it would always be noisy. And so the only way, because the guns are loud, and so he would always yell. And so he said that they would end up doing everything on the floor. He would study on the floor, sleep on the floor, eat on the floor. And now he became a cop, not because he wanted to fight criminals, but because he hated the floor. And so I thought, wow, that was just one aspect of his character, but it felt complete to me, and I felt connected to him. Like there's this one humanity, one character, endearing and likable, and something that I felt connected to in that character. So you don't necessarily need extensive exploration of a character to be able to establish that connection to the audience. You just need some amount of connection to the character. And so I guess that's what I was missing. Like to many of those characters, people that were doing all of those fighting that I saw were in the fight, I did not feel connection to them. And so there weren't a lot of rush for me. But in terms of the narrative, it fit in. Like it made sense to me. So the story, although that specific scene I did not feel engaged with, still, like as a part of that narrative, it was still very strong, because then it made me understand, made me realize just how ambiguous the rules are, that you can actually take advantage of those ambiguity. One. Number two, just how dirty this and desperate these people are. This is the moment when they lost a chunk of their humanity. Like they lost 90% of the 100% of humanity they had in them. And when they were fighting, I just felt that I knew, I didn't see it, but I knew what I was supposed to be seeing are animals. These people are animals. They're not humans anymore. The compassion isn't there anymore. It was just winning. They wanted that money. They were already in this hellhole, and they were giving in. They were giving in to the evil of their addiction. So narrative-wise, it was solid. It's just that particular scene in the fight, which was supposed to be the highlight, that I did not feel the rush. On to episode 5.